Have you ever felt a strange sense of guilt for your own success? A subtle pressure to apologize for your ambition, to dim your own light so that others won't feel inadequate? Have you ever noticed how society seems to celebrate humility, to praise the meek, and to find a strange virtue in suffering? This feeling is not an accident. It is the echo of a silent war, fought not on battlefields, but in the deepest recesses of the human soul. A war that, according to one of history's most dangerous philosophers, was won 2,000 years ago by the very people who seem to have no power at all. This is not a comfortable philosophy. It is a terrifying diagnosis of power itself. Today, we explore Friedrich Nietzsche's most forbidden and controversial idea: that the morality we call good is, in fact, a sophisticated psychological weapon, a brilliantly engineered system of control. This is the story of the tyranny of the weak. To understand our world, Nietzsche argued, we must first understand that it was not always this way. In the ancient world, among the noble classes of Homeric Greece, Republican Rome, and the great empires of the past, the very definition of good was completely different. Nietzsche called this master morality. For the noble, the concept of good was simple. It was a direct reflection of himself. To be good was to be strong, to be proud, to be ambitious, to be wealthy, to be beautiful, and to be courageous. Think of Achilles, glorious in his rage and his prowess, unburdened by guilt. Think of a Roman patrician, whose sense of virtus, of excellence, manliness, and duty flowed directly from his own powerful station. Good was everything that affirmed life, that heightened the feeling of power, and that set him apart from the common masses. The noble soul creates values. His morality was born from a powerful and resounding yes to himself, to his own existence. He looked at his own attributes, his strength, his health, his joy in life, and declared, "This is good." His concept of bad was merely an afterthought, a pale shadow cast by his own brilliance. Bad was simply that which was not good: the common, the weak, the timid, the sick, the pathetic. He did not hate the weak. Hatred requires an equal. He simply looked upon them with a kind of disdainful pity, as something contemptible, but ultimately beneath his consideration. They were the background against which his own nobility was defined. This was a morality born of strength and self-affirmation. It did not seek approval from others. It did not ask for permission. It was a declaration of its own value, flowing outward from an overfullness of power. The eagle does not ask the lamb for permission to be an eagle. It simply is. It hunts. It soars. It lives according to its nature. For the master, to be powerful was not a choice, it was a state of being. And to be good was simply to be what he was. This was the world of the masters. A world where virtue was synonymous with vitality. But below them, in the shadows of their grand monuments and the fields tilled for their benefit, a different kind of morality was brewing. A morality born not of strength, but of suffering. A morality born of oppression, weakness, and a deep, simmering hatred for their masters. Nietzsche called this slave morality, and its emergence would not just challenge the masters, it would poison their souls and change the course of human history forever. The weak, the oppressed, the slaves, they could not defeat their masters in open combat. 1,000 lambs can never defeat a single eagle. So, Nietzsche argued, they accomplished something far more brilliant and far more insidious. They launched a rebellion not of the sword, but of the soul. A slave revolt in morality. This revolt was born from a single, powerful psychological engine: ressentiment. This is not simple resentment. It is a deep, creative, and venomous hatred of an external cause for one's own suffering. Trapped in their powerlessness, the weak could not act directly against their masters, so their hatred turned inward, festering, growing, and becoming creative. It was the imaginary revenge of a being to whom the revenge of deeds was denied. Like a spider weaving a web in a dark corner, this creative hatred began to spin a new moral universe. Its creativity gave birth to a masterstroke of psychological warfare, a radical revaluation of all values. It began with a thunderous no. It looked at the master's good, his strength, his pride, his wealth, his ambition, his health, and it declared all of it to be evil. The strong man was no longer noble. He was a violent brute. The wealthy man was no longer blessed. He was greedy and corrupt. The proud man was no longer confident. He was arrogant and sinful. The healthy man, enjoying the fruits of this world, was godless. The masters were recast as the ultimate villains, their very nature a crime against a new, higher authority. Then, with this foundation of negation laid, they looked at their own condition, their weakness, their poverty, their suffering, their humility. And with an act of stunning psychological alchemy, they declared it to be good. The poor were now the blessed. The meek would inherit the earth. The suffering were pious and closer to God. Humility was no longer a sign of weakness, but the ultimate virtue. Kindness, compassion, and pity, emotions the master rarely considered except as a condescending gesture, were elevated to the highest moral plane. They had taken their own powerlessness, the very chains that bound them, and rebranded it as a moral choice, a sign of spiritual superiority. To lead this spiritual war, a new kind of human emerged: the ascetic priest. The priest, according to Nietzsche, was the genius of this revolt. He was himself one of the weak, the sick, but he became their physician. He gave their suffering meaning. He told the herd that their misery was not a sign of their inferiority, but a test, a trial. He taught them to redirect their hatred away from their oppressors and turn it inward, against themselves. He created the concepts of sin, guilt, and salvation, turning life into a courtroom where everyone was already judged guilty for their own natural, life-affirming instincts. This, Nietzsche declared, was the genius of the slave revolt. It had turned the master's entire worldview upside down. The weak had convinced the strong that the very source of their strength, their will to power, their pride, their ambition, was evil. They had tamed the eagle by convincing it that its talons were a moral failing, and that the highest virtue was to be a lamb. This new morality, born of weakness and hatred, spread like a virus, first through Judaism, and then, most powerfully, through Christianity. It was a victory more complete than any military conquest. It was the poisoning of the very roots of Western consciousness. 2,000 years later, we live in the world that this revolt created. Slave morality, Nietzsche argued, is the dominant moral system of the Western world. Its victory is so complete that we don't even question its premises. We simply assume that humility, compassion, equality, and pity are the self-evident foundations of a good and just society. we have inherited the values of the slave. But Nietzsche forces us to ask a terrifying question. What if these values are not divine truths, but the lingering psychological chains of an ancient revolt? What if we are living under a tyranny of the weak? We see this everywhere. It is the tall poppy syndrome, the cultural tendency to cut down anyone who grows too tall, who achieves too much, who stands out from the crowd. We are taught to view extreme success not with admiration, but with suspicion. We look for the flaw, the secret crime, the injustice that must be behind their greatness. We find comfort in their downfall. It is the foundation of what some now call victimhood culture, where the assertion of one's suffering becomes a source of moral power and social currency. The more one has suffered, the more righteous their voice becomes. In this inverted world, the weakest hold the moral high ground. This is the ultimate expression of slave morality. Weakness has been perfected as a tool for power. The modern ascetic priest is no longer in a church. They are on social media, in academia, and in HR departments, enforcing the herd's morality by directing the evil eye at anyone who dares to be different, powerful, or exceptional. In our corporate and social lives, it is the overwhelming pressure to conform, to be a team player, to be agreeable, humble, and never too assertive. Ambition is often reframed as a selfish vice. The desire to rise above the herd is seen as a moral failing. The wolf is told that its highest duty is to learn to graze with the sheep. This system, born to protect the weak, has now become a cage for the strong. It creates a society that is comfortable, safe, and, in Nietzsche's view, profoundly mediocre. It is a world made for the last man, Nietzsche's vision of the ultimate, pathetic end goal of humanity. The last man is a creature who seeks only comfort and security. He has no great ambitions, no great loves, no great hatreds. He blinks, content in his small, painless existence, unable to understand why anyone would ever want to climb a mountain or sail a stormy sea. What is the cost of this victory? According to Nietzsche, the price was greatness itself. Slave morality is, at its core, a morality of no. It is reactive. It defines itself by what it is against: the master, the powerful, the exceptional. It is a system designed to level everyone, to bring everyone down to a common, safe, and unthreatening denominator. It is the morality of the herd, and the herd fears anything that stands apart. A society dominated by this morality, Nietzsche warned, loses its ability to create truly great individuals. It fears the exception. It suppresses the trailblazer, the genius, the visionary, the very figures who push humanity forward. These figures, by their very nature, are not humble. They are not meek. They are not satisfied with mere comfort. They are driven by a powerful will to power, a fundamental drive not to dominate others, but to grow, to overcome obstacles, to expand, and to impose their creative vision on the world. In the world of slave morality, these figures are seen as dangerous, as evil. Their ambition is checked, their pride is shamed, and their will is broken by the tyranny of the herd and its priestly guardians. The ultimate goal of humanity, in Nietzsche's view, was to create the Übermensch, or overman. The Übermensch is not a tyrant or a new master. He is a self-creator. He is the human being who has so completely overcome his own internal weaknesses, who has so thoroughly rejected the morality of the herd, that he can create his own values, live by his own laws, and treat his entire life as a work of art. The Übermensch is the one who can look at the chaos and suffering of existence and say yes to it, willing it to happen again and again for all eternity. But a society ruled by the morality of the weak, the morality of the last man, will never allow an Übermensch to exist. It will see him as a threat and tear him down before he can even begin to rise. The price we have paid for the comfort and safety of our modern morality, Nietzsche would argue, is our own potential for greatness. We have traded the eagle's flight for the lamb's safety. Nietzsche's philosophy is not a call to be cruel or to oppress others. That would be a crude and simplistic misreading. The person who needs to be dominated is not your neighbor, it is yourself. It is a call for a profound and deeply personal form of self-examination. It is a call to wage a war against the slave morality that resides within your own soul. It is a call to become aware of the origins of your own moral beliefs. When you feel guilt for your ambition, is that a genuine moral failing? Or is it the echo of an ancient psychological war? When you praise humility, are you celebrating a true virtue? Or are you participating in a system designed to restrain the exceptional? To break free from the tyranny of the weak is not to become a tyrant yourself. It is to begin the difficult and lonely process of reevaluating all values. It is to question everything you have been taught about good and evil, and to have the courage to create a moral code that is truly your own, one that is born not from fear, resentment, or the approval of the herd, but from a powerful yes to your own life and your own potential for greatness. This is the path of the free spirit. It is the path of the philosopher who is willing to look into the abyss of human morality and not blink. It is the recognition that before you can become who you are, you must first destroy the prison of who you were told to be. Nietzsche's final unspoken question is this: are your values truly yours, or are they the elegant chains you were taught to love? If this exploration into the architecture of power resonated with you, consider subscribing. We publish a new deep dive every week, designed for those who choose to think carefully in a world that encourages the opposite. Join us. Let us know in the comments, where do you see the tyranny of the weak in the world today?